Well, hello, everybody, and welcome again to the Weirdly Magical podcast. And very excited that we are heading into eclipse season, and Jen and I are going to be looking at the energy of and around the eclipse that is on Christmas Day for some of us here in the US, and on Boxing Day, as we call it in the UK, for most other people. And it's a biggie. But before we do that, let's quickly introduce ourselves and do some housekeeping. So, Jen?
Hello everyone, I'm Jen Duchen and I am an Akashic mentor, healer, teacher, and creator of the Illuminating Journey cards. I even have a pack here.
Ooh.
And I guide my clients to activate their soul's true choice.
And I am Louise Eddington. I'm now known as the Cosmic Owl because my new business name is Cosmic Owl Astrology, and hence the owl. And for those that are watching on YouTube, I have an owl behind me, on my shoulder actually. And I am a soul astrologer and writer and shamanic practitioner, and I help people to live in deep self-awareness and self-acceptance. And just a bit of housekeeping before we go into the energies. We have a question, so we will be answering a question after we've looked at the energies. And if you have any questions for the podcast, please email them to weirdlymagicalpodcast@gmail.com. I would like to remind those of you that listened to our 2020 overview that you can still watch that on our Weirdly Magical YouTube channel or listen at any of the podcast providers. And Jen and I will be offering our special consultation sessions until the Saturn and Pluto conjunction on January the 12th. So if you're interested in one of those, or both, one from Jen, one from me, they're $108 each, $108 each. And if you've lost the links, just ask us for them. Also, we have a Patreon, and it's patreon.com/weirdly magical for just $3 a month, just to help support our work. And when we reach a certain number of patrons, we'll be doing Patreon-only content. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. So is there any other housekeeping, Jen? I don't think there is. Please leave us reviews. Please subscribe on podcasts. Please subscribe on the YouTube channel. You know, the more subscribers, the more kind of likes and clicks and things that we get, the more attention our podcast gets. So you can support us for nothing by doing that. So Jen, we've pulled cards, haven't we? And what's your card?
Yes.
I think you've got two, right?
So my card that I pulled from the Illuminating Journey deck, the one I created with the help of the Akashic Records, I actually got one of the tools. So I don't know if we've ever got, I think maybe we had a tool once before, but this one is called the Divine Line. So for those of you who can't see it, this is a cell phone that is connecting you to the divine, and it has things like buttons on it where you can, align, infuse, eject, diffuse, or record. So it's all ways of connecting to the divine. And whenever I see this card, which actually is not very often, then I always realize that this is the divine speaking to us or to me, saying, you're seeking, you're looking, but really I'm right here. Just use this connection to connect with me. What do you need? What do you need? Do you need to be aligned, connect, diffuse, record? So it's just a signal, I think, in terms of how I see it, in remembering that you're not alone, and the one place to go where you can always trust that connection is to the divine. And because I pulled a tool, I also pulled another card, which is my want. If I pull a tool or a number, and this one is the 3, which we may have had before. It's come up quite a lot lately. And this card is the figure swimming up, which looks like water, it could be liquid of life, swimming up to the light, to that divine infusion, to know that it is, and in a way, it's like kind of repeating the same thing, right? It's this idea of allowing yourself, your mind, your head, your belief systems to kind of float up to that inspiration, to that connection, that illumination that ignites life within you, the playfulness and joy. So for me, I think this is just a message from the divine going, the way to move through what's coming up is to activate your connection and to be in playful joy and just kind of surrender to the opportunity to shift into something different by being playful and joyful.
And of course, it's the Trinity. You've got the little Trinity symbol there, haven't you? You know, and
Exactly.
of mind, body, and spirit, and bringing it all in to connect.
Right.
And I pulled a card too, but I did forget that I didn't show you my excitement of my new book. Is available on pre-order. Those of you that can see the video, it's called A Complete Guide to Astrology, Understanding Yourself, Your Signs, and Your Birth Chart. So it's available on pre-order as of yesterday. So I'm very excited by it. But my card is the Priestess. I think I pulled it like last time or last month in one of the lunations, and I can't remember which one. But it's the Moon card, which kind of seems very appropriate, really, for a total annular eclipse where the moon almost blots out the light of the sun. She doesn't quite. I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. And, you know, this one is very similar to Jen's card in a way. If you look at the Priestess, she's, you know, got all this at the top of her head, for those that are not looking on the video. She's very connected to the divine. She's sitting on her throne, and she's got this crown that's really just connected to spirit. And I personally think that this is really very connected with Capricorn right now, with all the energy that's happening in Capricorn, because she keeps coming up for me as all this change is happening in Capricorn, as we're being asked to step into the more night yin energy of Capricorn, instead of how it's been presented as very hard and cold and very patriarchal, which isn't the true nature of it. So there you go.
Yes,
Becoming a priestess.
Right. And I just wanted to add to that, in terms of when you're looking at that energy, which kind of speaks to this card of the divine line thing, is that recognition, the priestess, the divine line, that cell phone to the divine. It's all about the bringing that upper energy into the body and standing your ground, being willing to climb the mountain. It's like putting that energy into practical use, using practical tools to activate this time, because it's just not going to happen on its own. We are being called to draw in this energy and use it to be these warriors of our own lives.
Definitely. And speaking of warriors, today we're going to look at the annular new moon eclipse and the energy around it too. And this is, we're looking at London time as usual. So it's on December the 26th at 5:13 a.m. Universal Time, which is London time. It's at 4 degrees and 6 minutes of Capricorn, and it's a new moon. So the moon and sun are together. And it's conjunct Jupiter, and it's aspecting Uranus in Aries, Uranus in Taurus and Chiron in Aries. But I said I was going to explain what an annular eclipse was. And an annular eclipse is a total new moon eclipse, except that the moon, from our perspective, is closer to the Earth. So the sun and the moon are further apart. So the moon, whilst it totally covers the sun, it doesn't quite, because there's a big ring of fire around it, and this is called a ring of fire eclipse, unsurprisingly. And there's big connections with stories in mythology about it. The one I was reading about was the story of Brunhilde in the Valkyries, where Brunhilde was actually punished by being surrounded by a ring of fire. So it kind of shows how all these mythologies have probably been written because that people were witnessing what was happening in the cosmos, and they told stories about it to personify it and to make sense of it. So it's really a marriage of the day and the night. When we have a total new moon eclipse, the light is dimmed and the night comes in and brings in her power. And I talk a lot about the day and night energy in my new book, actually, and it's an interesting move that not just myself, it's not. There's some other astrologers. We're moving to bring in this language more and more, and bring in the psychology of the night, which is very much being blocked out by our society. We live in a life where we have lights on everything, and we live with our screens. We're rarely comfortable without everything being lit up, because the night has been seen as something to fear. And an annular eclipse is, I'm not going to go into the whole myth of Brunhilde and the Norse mythology, but it is literally kind of like, in the end, she throws herself on a funeral pyre, and the day and night are consumed together and burned together. So it's a very transfigurative eclipse, a ring of fire eclipse. So we'll look at the numbers and we'll look at the astrology. So.
Right. And I also want to just add to that before we go into the details. What I find so fascinating is we have the solstice coming up on the 21st, which of course is the moment in time where night and day are kind of switching roles. You're moving from, in the north hemisphere, the longest night to the shortest day, and now it's starting to switch in the opposite, obviously, in the southern hemisphere. And then having this ring of fire, this dance, this marriage of light and dark, this marriage of fire and which is our passion, bringing that all into the open, making us kind of more aware of how our passion and our focus drives us. And if we're afraid of the dark, we will never reconnect to this divine energy that is available to us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the eclipse is literally, well, and the solstice, both the solstice and the eclipse. And the two, they're coming so close together. They're only 5 days apart. So less than 5 days apart, actually. If you look at the actual time, just 4.5, I think. It's kind of like we're having this major, major reset. This is a solstice and a half, and next year's solstice is another big one too. But we are coming into some tremendous times, really. Yeah.
Right. We're ending so much. We're ending the decade. We're ending our way of being. We're stepping into something, into duality and an awakening. And all of this are just symbols. If you can think about being in the past when the solstice was so important, people who were living in the dark, it was the sign that the light was returning. And so this double sign of the burning, or the eclipse with the fire, the dark and then the fire around it, is definitely a symbol of reset.
Mm. And the light returning, literally, really.
Right.
Because then when the moon moves off the face of the sun's kind of reborn. So it's very transfigurative, as I said. I do find it, just to stick with the myth before we go into detail, I do find it interesting, really, all the myths have similar stories and things in all the mythological pantheons, whatever you want to call them. And Jupiter is conjunct this new moon, and Jupiter could be seen as Odin, who is the Valkyries' top god, if you like. So here he is with the sun and the moon on this eclipse. It's quite amazing, and he's a sky god, and the eclipse is aspecting Uranus, who is also a sky god.
Right. And
Yeah.
here we have the females, maybe perhaps, it's always these stories always about the females being, certainly in the patriarchal telling of the story, the females are always the ones who are having to make the sacrifice or having to make a choice. And yeah, so shifting of all of that, like for me, this is about the rising of the female to go, I'm in power too. This isn't, you're not deciding what I have to do. I'm deciding.
Yep. So do you want to go ahead with the numbers for a bit, and we'll
Sure,
wrap as we
absolutely.
usually do?
Yes, how fascinating. We're having this on the 26th, which is in 8. The sun and moon at an 8-day, and then the sun and moon at 6 degrees. So this 6 is, of course.
Oh, they're at 4 degrees.
Sorry, forgive me. Thank you.
But 2 4s make 8.
My idea is 4.6. And when my mind went to 6, I meant to say 4, but I thought I was saying 4, but I said 6. That's so weird. Anyway, so they're both at 4 degrees.
And 2 4s make 8. So.
I know. And 2 4s make 8. But 8 and 4, whenever you have 8 and 4 together like this is, that destiny is being triggered. So it is a highly destined experience we're having. 2, 4, and 8. The 2 is, we're moving into the 2020, so that role of the 2 is huge. So 2, 4, and 8, these are all the manifesting numbers. These are all about this idea of making it real, making our ideas or our dreams. So it feels like this energy is all about switching on that light, switching on that awareness, like, oh, I've been asleep, I've been kind of looking down, and now I'm looking up. I'm feeling this energy of needing to attach discipline and devotion and dedication and awareness of what needs to happen, what goes where, the details that need to be attended to in order to activate this manifestation, to bring in abundance. And I also feel like this is a sign for us. This double 4 is just so incredible because we are moving into a 4-year. So again, it's that reminder of what does it take to create something new, because we're taking maybe old ideas, new ideas, all kinds of things, and we're bringing them together through our own focus, through the things we're willing to do. We're bringing ideas into form, we're applying ourselves, we're connecting with others, we're getting very focused on the journey. It really feels like a journey, like we're starting a journey, and we are starting with this incredible focus of what we desire and taking very little with us, because we need to be able to move quickly to do this thing that's going to take all of our attention. So I find that fascinating. Remembering we are in the final days of the 12th year, the 12th universal year, which is about this activating our joy, our wisdom, allowing us to let go of old things. So very much that moving into making a different shift with the numbers. And of course, this month is a 6th universal month, or 15. So that again is also impacting us, turning this into, this is a love journey. So it's just like, this is all about how we can bring our focus into the focus of love, how we can live with the light of love. That doesn't mean we don't have hard things to do, because this does feel like a challenging journey, but also one that is invigorating and liberating. By building our own form and shape, we can, free ourselves.
And you mentioned, it's on an 8-day, and of course the lunar nodes are also at 8 degrees, and that's the south node. This is a south node eclipse, which is a releasing eclipse, letting go of. So it's a new beginning in so many ways, and moving towards that north node, which is our Dharma, which is in the sign of Cancer, which is the family. Remembering we're all one big family, and we're all in this together, and moving towards a more kind of nurturing, caring night-centered, emotion-centered society, hopefully.
Right. Well, we're writing the balance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's all about how do we do that? How do we take these numbers and instead of focusing on what the world has told us we need to do, like have certain things and work towards certain things, we're pulling back our energy into our bodies, into our reigniting that connection with the divine, so we can be really focused. I'm focusing what I'm creating for myself and others, as opposed to what can I get out of this, right? This is about contribution and connection. So it's a very different focus.
And just to stick with Jen's numbers for a minute, my ruling planet Jupiter, my favorite planet, is at 5 degrees, the number of change. But correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Jupiter connected to the number 5 anyway? So I'm sure I've read that somewhere. I don't know.
Actually, Mercury is considered the 5.
Okay.
The 5, but it may be Jupiter. I don't know. So
there's often more than one connection.
Yeah,
anyway.
there could be more than one connection. However, Mercury tends to be the 5. But it does make sense that Jupiter could be connected just because of the expansion. What Jupiter does is expand, and 5 is about expansion of our souls in a physical realm, being present to what is and using that. It's like using the resources we have right now to help us move towards where we want to go, as opposed to staying stuck. That's the whole purpose of the 5. And that's what Jupiter does. That's what Mercury does. It's allowing our mind to change our minds, right? Yeah. Expand some new idea, a new way of thinking, so that we can move away from our fears and from, oh, this is the way it always is, to, no, it's not. It can be something different.
Of course, Mercury's in Jupiter ruled Sagittarius on the eclipse anyway. So, but I want to emphasize how big this eclipse is. It's in the main aspect, the closest aspect to the whole eclipse energy is Uranus, and that is sudden change and sudden insights, sudden awakening, sudden awarenesses. And Jupiter, as Jen said, expands everything. So, an eclipse is big already. A new moon eclipse tends to be more powerful than a lunar eclipse. And a total eclipse is even more powerful. And an annular eclipse is a form of total eclipse. And then it's only 1 degree from Jupiter, with Uranus aspecting. I would not be surprised if by New Year something major in our lives has changed. It may not be in our personal lives, it may be in the institutions around us. And it's, of course, eclipses do tend to unfold over time. They don't always happen on an instant. But with Uranus there, Uranus acts quickly. Uranus' power is immense. When Uranus moved into Aries, the very day Uranus moved into Aries, we had the big tsunami in Fukushima and the meltdown and everything. It happened to the very day. That's kind of Uranus. And these are in earth signs. It's Capricorn and Taurus. And so there could be literal earthquakes. There could be something in our financial institutions. It could be the government completely collapsing. It could be like, it's that strong, the energy. And it's so powerful. It's going to be big, whatever happens. And it's leading to all these new cycles being born in throughout the month of January. Not just Saturn and Pluto, but all the other planets moving past Pluto and several new cycles starting. So,
right. So for me, it really feels like a lot of endings. I mean, that's the point of an earthquake, especially when you look at the players involved. These are huge players that are impacting us on multiple levels. So they're not necessarily personal planets, but ones that impact us for generations to come. And this is quite phenomenal. I was just looking at how many twos we have here, or 20s, right? So Uranus is at 2 degrees. And so we're moving into the 2020. And so all the symbolism is very potent. These are all signs from the universe. So 2 is that sign of connection, of recognizing where we are between two polarities, and actually moving the poles. I was reading an article, somebody was talking about that this is one of the things that has been spoken about over time. When the poles move, right, when the poles shift, then it impacts us. And so there is a pole shifting, there is all kinds of stuff happening in the earth. These things are predicted to take 150 or more years, but we know that we're in that process of the pole shifting. What else do we have at 2? We have, I think Pallas Athena is at 20 degrees.
She's at 20 degrees Sagittarius.
Right.
And Saturn's at 20 Capricorn.
Right. And I was reading somewhere about the Saturn, because this 20 degree, which is Saturn is at, I think Saturn was at 20 degrees in April when it moved.
Right. Before it went retrograde, yeah.
Right, 20 degrees. And Pluto was at 20 degrees when it came out of retrograde, and they're both being impacted by the 20. And of course, because the 20 is about this time we're going into our 21st century, the 20, we're going to double 20. The impact of the 20 is this connection between two worlds, two things, recognizing, I can shift that space where I'm connecting between two worlds. And also this idea that we don't have to do things the way we've done them before, because we have a choice. 2 is all about choosing our boundaries. One of my favorite sayings is this idea of be a diplomat, not a doormat. And so those are the two opposites, right? But you want something. So, this idea is about being willing to ask for what you want, put whatever it needs to go on the line to get that, instead of just giving up or throwing up your hands and saying it's never going to happen, nothing's going to change. It's about your commitment to this, and having that double 2 with the 4 is about not only seeing where we need to link, but also making the commitment, the dedication, the devotion, the discipline, the honesty, the integrity, all of these things that we can see are happening around us. Like all the stuff is coming up to be looked at, and then we have to make a decision, right? And that's another 2 thing, because it isn't just about the other person. It's like, what are we doing in response to what we're seeing? And having Saturn there, that 20, is another huge sign of change. And then Pluto's at 22, right? I mean, you just can't make this stuff up.
I know. And I just actually noticed as you were talking that the eclipse, but Jupiter to be precise, is at the exact midpoint of Pallas Athena and Saturn, who are both at 20 degrees. So from the astrological perspective, Pallas Athena is really a visionary. It is this owl energy, which is why I've got the owl behind me. And she has this ability to see these patterns, vision the bigger picture, and strategize and make plans. And she was very much that kind of warrior energy. And then Saturn is about the rules. Saturn in Capricorn is about the rules, the man-made laws. But we're remaking those laws, as we move into this new age. It doesn't mean, the basic laws like thou shalt not kill are being remade, but we are remaking the man-made laws, not the divine laws. And so the eclipse is literally kind of bringing in that strategic planning, bigger vision kind of energy into the new man-made laws. So that's fabulous too.
Right. It's kind of like Jupiter is actually pulling back that arrow, shooting kind of into the middle. It's like, here's all this information that's been gathered, and here are all these beings and ideas that are in the pool, And now we're shooting for something. We're aiming towards something. And what are
Jupiter's
we aiming?
natural law, of course, too. Sorry.
Right, the
Yeah.
natural law. So what are we aiming for? And then, of course, right there at the 8 degrees is the nodes. And the nodes are, of course, part of our path, right? Our soul's path, our revolutionary path, or evolutionary. And it's not just us as individuals,
Yeah.
it's our collective path.
Collective.
And we have to remember, we're releasing old wounds, we're releasing old ideas, old things that we've carried for hundreds, thousands of years as a collective, as individuals, our pain, our resistance, our fear around we have to do things a certain way or we'll be punished or we'll be killed. And I find it fascinating because of the 8, because the 8 is this number, and it is very much an earth-based number, but it is one of balance, right? Bringing heaven to earth. Now, we've talked about in all our stories, from the Bible stories of Eve and Adam and all of this stuff. It's always, and even stories beyond that, are about this idea of bringing heaven to earth. And to me, and what I get, the heaven to earth thing is really about us going, this is the lay of the land, and I'm choosing to follow my integrity. I'm choosing to follow what's true for me, as opposed to doing what other people told me is the right thing, which is what we've all been doing for hundreds of years. So that is fascinating that it's at 8 degrees 22 minutes. So we have right. We got the 22, we got the 4, we've got the 8. We just this pattern of 2, 4, 8.
Yeah.
It's like this is the time to now pay attention to the details. Allow your intuition to lead you. Start building a structure that has an immense foundation. Like build something that you can build more on, that the foundation is strong, and then find that balance between heaven and earth. Be the leader, but also be able to see what's yours, what's someone else's, right? It's this abundant idea.
And then, of course, I did mention at the beginning, we have a square to Chiron in Aries from the eclipse. And it's at 1 degree of Aries. It's recently gone direct as we record this. I think it went on the 13th of December. But it's still only just gathering speed. And Chiron is really the medicine person, the shaman, the teacher, the healer. And in Aries, this is about our individuality, our self, our I am presence. And really, what does it take to to bring about all these things we're talking about, Jen and I? It means each one of us stepping in, healing ourselves and bringing what we can into the world to help bring forth this new paradigm, and to be kind of the medicine man or the medicine person for humanity, for the earth, and bring ourselves into that, to be that key to healing rather than sitting back and expecting something else to heal us, as Jen said. So, so we are to be the key, really, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and what was coming up when you were talking about Chiron, because he's such an important figure, I think, in terms of mythology and in terms of bearing the brunt of the pain of the world, and shifting that into my choice. What am I choosing to do? Also, the thing that was coming up is this idea that often in medicine, we actually take some of the poison to, what's the word? We something it in our bodies. So,
well, it's kind of, that's the principle of homeopathy, isn't it?
Right.
Like heals like. Oh,
exactly. So we eat some of the own poison, the things that we may look at others and say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to, get aggressive and kind of fight for what I want or stand up for my rights, however you're going to interpret that. But if we actually eat some of this own medicine, get better at being more strategic, more focused, more determined. And this isn't saying that you should do nasty things or, go around like breaking the law or anything like that. But there is a difference. There is this thing of going, how willing am I to do this, right? And what do I need to do to get there? And maybe that is swallowing some of that medicine. And so actually, I forget the word, but actually it stops us from getting sick. So
Yeah.
whatever that is, that
What's the
homeopathy.
principle of vaccines as well, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, that's principle.
Originally, yeah, yeah. I don't want to get into that argument,
No.
but
But it's the idea,
yeah.
right, of ingesting enough poison so that you are no longer subject to uh, that type of illness that people in the world may want you to absorb, right?
And at a spiritual level as well, there's an element of putting yourself in another person's shoes, kind of, being able to, I don't mean being that person, but being able to, say, we'll just use myself as an example. I'm clearly, quite a leftist, but I'm quite privileged in my life personally, but I can spiritually feel what it must be like to not be able to afford to go and buy a loaf of bread and things like that. So that's what I mean by putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, being able to feel the pain of another and connect that bridge, because Chiron is very much the bridge too between the outer world and the personal world. So it's kind of making those connections. He's a very healing presence. He's the true Christ consciousness, really. So
Right. And he's giving us this opportunity to really begin to, with the one, being in Aries, this is all new beginnings. It's all about the focus. What is the one thing that is going to bring you to your truth, to connect you to others? This isn't about taking your single path. But on the other hand, sometimes you do need to, because you're the leader and others will follow. Like so many people don't know what to do in a situation. For instance, when you see somebody who is berating somebody for their color or something like that, if you just keep quiet and you say nothing, then it's like you are not taking the role of the healer. If you can stand up and say, well, I don't agree with you, or sit down or keep quiet or something, you're actually showing other people a way that people go, oh yeah, I could actually do that, right?
so it's kind of the Pied Piper.
Right, it is.
it is. The Pied Piper came up for me last week or something.
It is interesting. Yes, but it is. Like, we do need Pied Pipers. We do need people to lead us, but where are we being led? Because so many times we're led to keep quiet, to say nothing because it's none of my business. But it is. It's all of our business. We're all connected. Every one of us is connected by the actions we choose, by how we hold space for others, how we see. Like if we say it's none of our business, well then how are we living in the world when we're touched by everything? Which doesn't mean you need to go out and save everyone, but just even connecting to yourself, doing what's right for you, speaking up for your own truth in public or in private. That's the way to really
well, I think it's the principle of it starts with you, and it goes back to the prayer, the serenity prayer, that one, the courage to change the thing I can, which is yourself. You can only change yourself first, and then hopefully you can hopefully lead others to water. You can't make them drink, but you can lead by example. So,
right. And the point is, that's what you can do. If you ask, what can I do? It's live your truth.
Yeah.
When you see things that need speaking up about, do it. And then maybe somebody in that environment goes, oh, here's a different way I can be. We don't know if that's going to happen, but we do know that humans are like lemmings, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. We follow each other. One person does something, then we all kind of go, yeah, I'm going to do it too. Like we waiting. It's like that video, Simon Sinek, I think the guy's name is.
Oh yeah.
And the one guy starts doing this weird dance.
Yes. Yeah.
And everyone like just watches, and then still somebody else comes up and starts doing it. And then it's like, okay, now, and then suddenly everyone's running up to do the dance. Right? Yeah, we're lemmings. I mean, that's who we are. So who are we following, right? That's the key. There's nothing wrong with following people. But the big thing is to know you're following somebody who is kind of leading you in the direction of what you believe in and what's true for you, as opposed to the opposite. Right? It's easier to live in love and joy and build whatever you're building when you believe in it, right? And you feel good about it, as opposed to, I don't want to do this and I'm being made to do it.
Awesome. So there's not a lot other astrologically to say about this. You know, it's just kind of really hold on to your hats. It's huge. It's big. There's going to be with the Uranus, there's going to be some kind of earth moving
Right. What
energy unfold over the next 6 months. Sorry.
What day is Uranus going forward?
Uranus goes forward on just before the full moon, I think.
Okay.
Remember the exact day. I can look up while we talk. In fact, I think. Oh no, I can't. No, I can't remember the date that Uranus goes forward.
Just knowing.
Either the 1st or the 10th. I can't remember which day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds vaguely familiar. The 1st or something.
Yeah.
Well, that's the only planet right now.
Yeah. So right after the new moon, Uranus is pretty much stationed on this new moon. Right. He will move direct, and then it's going to be like, hold on, everything's moving forward, full speed. So wow.
So there's a lot of energy coming in. I think it's so fascinating that we have this eclipse right at the beginning of this new decade, this new time. Okay. It's highly significant. Personally, I think this is a wonderful time between now and this full moon and kind of new moon, annular eclipse, to reflect on the things that, you know, need to go in the light and the things that need to go in the dark, and what needs to be done. Who do you want to be? What do you want to bring forward? This is really a time to be empowered by the light and allow yourself to let things fall away, the things you don't agree with, the things that you don't want to practice anymore. Absolutely. What do you want more of? This is what this is all about, because Uranus is shaking up. And I feel like, and Lou and I, we've tapped on this, we've never really talked about it together individually. So for me, I just feel like, but I think we're on the same page. It doesn't matter though, but I just feel like we're moving into the space where now we have to choose between being an individual or being more of a lemming. And
I agree.
It's just like, yeah, you can be comfortable in saying, and in your distance, there's nothing I can do. It's all about, throw my hands up in the air. People always do this stuff, nothing changes. Well, we are the ones that have to change it, our own actions. And that starts with our belief system and what we're willing to do. Are we willing to get uncomfortable to do things differently? Or are we just going to go along?
And I agree completely. And something that occurred to me earlier today, due to an incident that happened in my own life, which I won't go into, is also, talking of being a lemming, it's where you want to bring change and be the Pied Piper and be the leader and live your truth, but it might be a very unpopular opinion, you know. It might not be what people say you should do or how you should do it, and you have to be prepared to take those slings and arrows a little bit as well, I think.
Right, and it may be a lot, but the point is you have to stick with your conviction because you know it's yours. I actually think it's a lot more treacherous to follow someone else's dream, because you have no idea where they're taking you. And if you're not stopping and asking questions, like if you are with other people and doing things, you still have to know, let me check in. How is this for me? What are you planning on doing? Because maybe at some point we're going to separate, because this is what I'm doing, that's what you're doing. And that idea is what empowers you, because just following somebody blindfold,
just because you say this is how it should be doesn't
mean. Or because you feel
that might be right for you, but
sometimes, you know, there's people we look at leaders and we go, well, they obviously know what they're doing, but you know, it's like following a car. This is kind of the example that comes up. You know how you're following somebody on the freeway because you think they know where they're going, or you think, oh, this is the person I'm following, and you just keep following, and then you realize you're following the wrong car, right? Or they're going somewhere you didn't want to go. It's kind of like that, right? We following somebody because, oh, they seem to know where they're going, and then suddenly they're going off somewhere else. And so that's just more of that lemming stuff. It's like, wait, I want to get guidance, so I get guidance. But once I'm on the freeway, I'm going to do something different because I don't want to just follow somebody blindly.
Yeah. So good luck, everybody. And I know a lot of you will be going, oh, because, you know, I get these messages all the time going, oh, when will it stop and all that. Look, it's going to be intense. It's going to be crazy, but it's got the potential to be absolutely amazing, you know?
Wow.
And,
Your dog sneezing?
Yeah, that's the dog sneezing. Yeah.
So funny. You say something, it's got the potential to be amazing, and then your dog sneezes.
Sneezes, I know. But I want people to hold on to that, you know, that this could be fabulous for so many people and will be fabulous for so many people. But it's not to be shrunk from. That's the point.
Right. It's not for bystanders.
Yeah.
You really have to step forward and get in the arena, as I think it was Teddy Roosevelt said. You have to get in the arena and do stuff, because for me, what I feel, and I'm not saying that I'm fear-free or anything like that.
Oh, me neither.
However, what I find it incredibly invigorating to just think about the freedom we have now that we didn't have 10 years ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago, that we can actually defy some of the conventional people in charge and just say, no, I'm not going to do that. And we don't even have to do it in a violent way or an obnoxious way. We can just go, oh, no, thanks, and just kind of do our own thing.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the same with people who come and say all these shitty things to us, like because they don't like us changing and they're uncomfortable. And you're like, oh, that's a great idea. Why don't you try it?
Yeah.
Right. It's like we don't need to be horrible to people because they don't agree with us or they're trying to stop us from doing new things, but just tapping into that immense joy, that feeling of liberation. Like, I have found a place of truth for myself, and I feel so whole here that I can make great decisions from this place.
I tell you, I'm loving it so far personally. I might bring it on.
Yeah, right.
This eclipse is on my Saturn, my first house Saturn. I'm going, yay.
Yeah, it's very exciting, but it doesn't matter what the level of fear or confidence you have. It's just the awareness that you can do something different. You can free yourself. So take the steps at your own pace, remembering, you know, this is a once in a, I don't know how many lifetimes opportunity. This is not a once a lifetime. This is once in a, I don't know.
Oh, we
100 lifetimes.
We looked at it on the 2020 overview, the general thing, and it's happened twice, once in 10 something and once in 12 something BC. So that this kind of similar lineup has happened. So it's definitely once in our lifetime. So, you know, I think just grab it, you know, and yeah, like Jen, you know, I'm not fear-free ever, you know, and I have my days where it's all like, I'm exhausted. Can it stop? But overall, I'm like, I know that this can be really amazing and will be if we lean into it. So.
Right. Just keep going for what you believe in. Hold that truth and just keep walking and ask questions. Don't be afraid to be curious, ask questions, test things out.
That's my word for 2020, by the way. Curiosity.
Oh, curiosity. Oh, that's right. That's right. So I think that's a great word for whatever your word is. But for me, this is the most incredible journey we can take. It's why we come here. This is the hero's journey, heroine, whatever you want to call it, journey of being able to shift our lives by our own determination and recognition that no one is the boss of us and we get to do something incredible. Whether it doesn't look incredible to the rest of the world, but knowing we freed ourselves from all the fears of how we need to behave small and shrink from just living the expression of who we are.
Exactly. So shall we do the symbols and then move on to the question? So I'll let Jen read the Sabian
Sabian,
symbol
yes. So
first.
I'm reading the Sabian symbol of Capricorn 5. Indians on the warpath, while some women row a well-filled canoe, others in it perform a war dance. And the keynote, the mobilization of physical and emotional energies in spirit of conquest. War is often undertaken mainly to mobilize the common will and avoid individualistic disintegration. The so-called chief in the symbol for the Capricorn 1 may find it convenient or necessary to arouse the war spirit, perhaps under a very slight provocation, in order to more firmly establish her authority. The scene presents an extremely dynamic situation. The group or the nation affirms its solidarity and unity of purpose by taking the offensive. The group life demands constant activity and challenges in order to remain healthy. This is the last symbol of the sequence. Okay. It suggests that aggressiveness may be a necessary ingredient in the activation of the potential of growth inherent in any social group.
So we did look at Linda Hill's book briefly before we started. I'm not going to read it all, but she talked about, and I have a big interest in Native American traditions and spirituality, and the war dance is more of a preparation for a battle, not necessarily just for war. It's it's a preparation for fighting for your rights, for fighting for what you believe in, for fighting for all those things. So don't take the word war too literally, I think, is my thought.
I actually feel like this, what I just read, is highly descriptive of what we've just been talking about. This is about activating a more active role.
Yeah.
It's not about attacking others. It's about moving away from negativity, moving away from the I can't, or what's the point? It's like we have to activate that energy inside of us by doing the dance of knowing I'm ready.
Your fighting spirit.
Right.
Not being passive and
exactly, and just saying, oh, forget about it, why bother, any of that stuff, because this is, and I love this thing because what do they say, it's to mobilize the common will and avoid individualistic disintegration. Yes, we don't want to lose our rights. We don't want to lose our voices. We're moving into this time. So we're gathering that energy. We're coming into and dancing and activating the spirit of our warrior-like energies so we can stand up for our rights.
Yeah, exactly. And the Chandra symbol is tall, dark cypress trees in a cemetery. The vertical dimension prevailing completely, bearing the authority of life, of death, of the two worlds brought into synthesis. You have the compelling stature of one who has seen life through before and has attained to ripe wisdom and the glory of realization, standing tall and erect and strong, staying aligned with the will of the divine, intensely involved with or the parent, because it says father and I've changed it, intensely involved with humanity and the sufferings and longings that saturate the world, singularly and purposefully assigned to bring into present time the truths from beyond this world that can sustain this world through her travail. Simply knowing from always the way it is and the way it must be, and breathing that truth as your fiber and backbone. Well, that says the same thing we've been saying as well. It just means Capricorn is very strong. Capricorn rules the bones and the spine, and the whole skeleton. So it's saying, stand in your strength and but not in the way of controlling others. This is about working together, as the symbol said, and being involved with humanity and the world and the longings that the world needs. So quite amazing symbol.
Right. Liberating everyone. By liberating yourself, you
Yeah.
take the path to liberation for all of us, so we all can be treated equally and develop new rules that protect those who need protection.
And I think both symbols speak to really gathering your strength for this tremendous time we've got coming up, you know.
Right. It's like coming alive.
Yeah.
Their song, coming alive. I don't know.
Stepping up to the plate, I think we used the expression last time in the podcast. Yeah. Amazing times. Shall we do the question?
Yes, let's.
Okay, well, this is from Whitney. Whitney, thank you. She says she's a loyal listener and that she had such a laugh when my dogs were barking. Yeah, that kind of tickles me that happened all the time. Okay, she said she listened to the dog clip multiple times. Oh, I'm glad I wasn't muted in that case. Oh, God.
Bells ringing.
Yeah, and I thought I'd turned it off. I told him I would be on the call too, but anyway. So my question for both of you is regarding the fundamentals of your expertise in astrology and more broadly the scope of ancient wisdom that you weave through the podcast. She's curious as to the books that have been the most influential to both of you in your work as astrologers and healers. She goes on to talk that she found the Chandra symbols through the podcast, so that's great, but she's interested in other book recommendations of a more advanced nature in astrology, numerology, ancient wisdom. Okay, so I'm just going to run through a couple of my favorites for astrology. Inner Sky and Yesterday's Sky by Stephen Forrest, or in fact any of Stephen Forrest books I love. Pluto 1 and 2 by Jeffrey Wolf Green. They're dense, they're deeply intense, but they're the best books on Pluto out there. Healing the Soul by Mark Jones is another good book for the asteroid goddesses and that kind of thing. Demetra George, her book called The Asteroid Goddesses. So they're really kind of my favorites. Oh, there was The Living Lilith by M. Kelly Hunter as well. These are kind of my go-to astrology books. Not that I sit in the books anymore because I've been doing it for such a long time, but I learn more all the time, of course. Other books for me, she talked about ancient wisdom. Well, one of my favorite authors at the moment, and I went to hear him talk a couple of weeks ago, is Stephen Jenkinson. And he has a book called Come of Age, The Case for Elderhood in a Time of Trouble. Now, this feels so relevant to the times, this book, because Capricorn is the wise elder, really, and Saturn is, and you know, he delves deeply into what it is to be an elder, what it is to be the wise person, and really to invites people to radically rethink the concept of what it is to be an elder and what it takes to be an elder. He's an amazing man, in my opinion. I mean, I have so many books, it's hard to choose. You know, I also like who are the people that channeled on the law of attraction. I kind of like them too when I listen or read those books. I can't remember. I'll have to look it up. But the Hicks, Abraham Hicks.
Right.
Yeah, Abraham Hicks. If talking about ancient wisdom, that's coming direct from the top. But you know, a lot of the time, it's not just books I learn from now. So, but I could go on and on, but I won't. Jen's got some too.
So what a great question. I actually used to be a great reader, but I have to say most of my information comes from Akashic records, right?
Yeah.
There's incredible amount of information that comes from there that I find resonates for me.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm not very curious about what other people have said, but for me, I just haven't read those books, and I probably won't ever read most of the books that are out there, just because I don't know why. They've never been in my sphere. There are a couple of books that I do recommend, and again, it's personal taste, what it appeals to you. And there's a lot of wisdom out there. There's a lot of wisdom on the internet. And I'm a great believer in, what's that word? Taking all the information and then allowing it to come in.
Filter.
Yeah, like filter, that's it. You want to filter this information and check in if it's true for you.
Yeah.
So somebody that had a great impact for me when I was coming through my dark night of the soul was Brené Brown. I actually listened to a TED Talk, her first TED Talk, and she is an amazing thinker. So I just recommend her and her books or her TED Talks. A book that I absolutely loved was Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. That's an amazing book. It's a mind-bending opening to how you think differently. That's basically where my mind's at. I want to think different. I want information that's not available. I have not found a book in numerology or the Akashic Records that felt like it was giving me anything different. A lot of what I've learned numerology, and I've looked at other people's stuff, but most of the stuff I get is from the records or what gets channeled through because of this lens I look at the world in. Another book that really helped me was a book called Playing Big by Tara Moore. This is really about, for women, how you change the way you think about playing big. I just found that a profound. I did her program, and the book follows the program, so it's really quite powerful. There's two other people that I've looked at and read, and one is Bruce Lipton. One of the books he wrote, Biology of Belief. He's written some other books. It's all about the quantum physics and cell biology and how we change ourselves through our cells, which I find that fascinating. And then somebody who I have suddenly came into my mind when you were talking.
Yeah.
Was Paul Selig. He's a channel. He channels this the Melchizedeks, or they don't call themselves that, they just call themselves the guides. Very, very profound information he's written. He's actually channeled all these books.
I've read some channel books that have had the same, and his are really,
Right.
Yeah.
He's an amazing channel, amazing. For me, it's about being real. And so those are the books I'm recommending.
Of course, you've triggered a few for me as well, but I was just thinking as well, there was the Four Agreements, was a life-changing book for me by Don Miguel Ruiz. But I like to read a lot about the old myths. I like to try and find some of the really old texts and stuff, so they're not kind of like common books. It's finding some of the old translated texts. There's a book called Death Walkers. That's another book that has done it. But I've got a very varied, and Wayne Dyer, he changed my life. Some of his books are amazing, some less so, but his overall teachings were pretty amazing. The Power of Myth, that's a great book.
Wasn't that Joseph Campbell?
Yeah, Joseph Campbell. And I like to listen to some of the old philosophers too, just I don't like to just read now. I like to listen to what they say as well. So.
Right, me too. I like to listen. There are also a lot of female books out there. Unfortunately, I don't know all of them, but there are like famous woman authors. I think Maria Gambini, I think Gamberto. She was archaeologist, a woman. She talks about the goddesses, all those things. There's a lot of those things out there.
Toko Parturner, she is, I don't know if that's how you say her name. She wrote Belonging. That's an amazing book too.
Sometimes just reading books. I read a book by I don't remember the name of the woman. But it was a story. So I often get a lot of information from watching movies and stories because I know a lot of that stuff is true, even though
Yeah,
it's shown as a story. Sometimes children's fairy tales and things like that, I just find them very informative.
me too.
And
And,
folk stories, right?
and there's the Maeve Chronicles by Elizabeth Cunningham. There's a series of
All
books
right.
that's fiction form story of Mary Magdalene and Jesus and Yeshua, but it's in fiction form. So that was a really enjoyable read, as well as getting a lot out of it, a lot of kind of messages in there. So yeah,
Right. There's hundreds of those type of things. So if you like reading, there's some amazing chronicles out there, different types of information.
there really is.
I mean, what was it? The Avalon, Mists of Avalon.
Oh, that's a favorite.
Right. When I first came into, I'd never read it, or I don't even know if I even heard of it. When I started working with the Akashic beings and was having readings, they suggested that I read it because I'd been there. So that was very helpful to do that and give me a whole idea of areas that I'd been kind of interested in but didn't know anything about.
I love that book. And then if you're interested in the psychology side as well, there's a guy called Robert A. Johnson, I think his name is. He's written a series of very short books. What my favorite's Inner Gold, but I've got 2 or 3 of them. And that's, just about your inner gold. And he's a very good psychologist. So there's a lot of books.
Many, many books. One that we have talked about is the art thing. What's it called?
Oh, The Artist's Way.
Yes, The Artist's Way.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, that's a favorite of mine. But you have to do that, not just read.
Right. Which I actually think is a good thing.
Yes.
And there's one last book I'll mention if I remember the name. What's his name? The guy from South America. Aleph. What was the book?
Oh, I can't remember.
That's a fantastic book.
No, I can't remember the name.
Right. Well, if we remember Paul, wasn't it?
Oh, Paul Coelho?
Yes.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah, and I can't remember the name of the book now, but Paul Coelho. Yeah.
Beautiful book. Alchemist. I think that one was called
The Alchemist.
Right.
Yeah.
Beautiful books he's written. Amazing, spiritual, deeply connective books. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's given you a lot of choices. Oh, so good luck with that. Your bedside table might look like mine.
Like mine.
Because I sometimes dip in. I'll start a book, and there's Reza Aslan. That's another guy I like. He's written Zealot, about the life of the real Jesus. I like stories like that about who I consider to be mythical people and what they might have been really like. Anyway, okay, right then, Jen. How can people find you?
So they can find me on my website, jendushen.com. My cards are available at jendushen.com/illuminating journey cards. I have a group called We Belong Here on Facebook. I'm on Facebook under my name. I have a page. I think it's all under Jendushen. Pretty much all over. If you want to have a group, if you're interested in joining, that's well, I'm not going to name it because the name's changing. So
okay.
On my website. You can find me through my website.
Yeah. And I'm Louise Eddington, and most things are under my name. If you Google my name, I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I have a Facebook business page, Louise Eddington Astrologer. My YouTube channel, I'm really trying to start to grow. I'm going to be starting to do a lot more video, kind of a month ahead for all the signs, and some teaching videos. So it's called Cosmic Owl Astrology, the YouTube channel, if you want to go and find it and subscribe. I'm trying to build up the subscriber numbers. I also have a Facebook group called Planetary Magic Cafe. That's a fun space where people are quite engaged. And my book is available for pre-order. That's actually not on my website yet. I need to put it on my website, but there's a link to it in my Instagram bio. I have a link tree with all the links, and it will be on my website soon. So,
yeah.
So I think that's it. But mostly for the podcast, we're looking for reviews. iTunes reviews are where it's at. If a written review is even more valuable than just a star. So if you could leave a review if you enjoy it, we'd be very grateful. And don't forget, we do have a Patreon. $3 a month just supports this work and the running costs of the podcast. And I think that's everything. Oh, questions to weirdlymagicalpodcast@gmail.com. So for now, it's goodbye from Lou.
And goodbye from Jen.